I'm Dr. Rachel Stevens, and I've been a neuropsychologist at University Medical Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. During my career, I've evaluated thousands of patients with traumatic brain injuries, memory disorders, PTSD, and every kind of cognitive dysfunction imaginable. I've seen patients who couldn't remember their own names, others who remembered things that never happened, and some who lost decades of memories overnight. But what I'm about to tell you about is the one case that made me question everything I thought I knew about memory, consciousness, and the very nature of human identity. It's the case that still keeps me awake at night, wondering if my own memories are real or if they've been slowly corrupted over the years without my knowledge. In the spring of 1993, I received a call that would change everything I believed about the human mind. Dr. Marche Isabella, a therapist in Napa Valley, California, contacted me about a case that had been generating significant controversy in the psychiatric community. Her voice carried an undertone of desperation when she explained the situation. Dr. Stevens, I need your expertise on a case that's troubling. I've been practicing for over a decade, and I've never encountered anything like this. It involves a young woman named Holly Ramona, and the memories she's recovered during therapy are so detailed, so vivid, that they've destroyed an entire family. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder if we've opened a door that should have remained closed. Holly was a 23-year-old student at UC Irvine who had sought treatment for bulimia and depression. What had started as routine therapy for eating disorders had spiraled into something far more sinister. During her sessions with Dr. Isabella, Holly had begun to recover what appeared to be repressed memories of childhood sexual abuse by her father, Gary Ramona. These weren't vague impressions or uncertain recollections. They were detailed, horrific memories that felt more real to Holly than her actual life. The case had already torn apart the Ramona family and was heading toward what would become one of the most significant legal battles in the history of psychology. But what disturbed me most about Dr. Isabella's call wasn't the legal implications. It was the genuine fear in her voice. Dr. Stevens, I've been having nightmares about this case. Holly's memories are so vivid, so emotionally authentic, that sometimes I find myself doubting my own recollections of my childhood. If memories can be this convincing and still be false, how can any of us trust what we remember? When I arrived in Napa Valley in May 1993, I expected to conduct a routine neuropsychological evaluation. What I found instead was a young woman trapped in a nightmare of her own mind's creation, and a family shattered by memories that felt more real than reality itself. My first meeting with Holly Ramona took place in a sterile conference room at the treatment center. The moment she walked in, I could see the weight of her supposed memories etched in every line of her face. She was painfully thin from her eating disorder, but it was her eyes that haunted me. They held a combination of absolute certainty and deep confusion that I had never seen before. Dr. Stevens, she said in a voice barely above a whisper, I know what my father did to me. The memories are so clear now. I can smell his cologne, feel the texture of the carpet in the living room, hear the sound of my mother's car pulling into the driveway while it was happening. These aren't fantasies or dreams. They're memories, real memories. As Holly began to describe her experiences, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. She wasn't just recounting events, she was reliving them. Her body language changed. Her voice took on the cadence of a frightened child, and tears streamed down her face as she described incidents of abuse that she claimed had occurred between the ages of 5 and 16. It started coming back gradually, Holly explained, her hands trembling as she spoke. At first, it was just feelings. I would wake up from nightmares that I couldn't quite remember, but they left me feeling dirty and afraid. Dr. Isabella helped me understand that these might be my mind's way of trying to tell me something important. What made Holly's case particularly disturbing was the progression of her memory recovery. When she first entered therapy, she had no conscious memories of sexual abuse. Her only complaints were bulimia and depression. Serious issues, but not uncommon among college students. It was only after months of therapy focused specifically on uncovering repressed trauma that the memories had begun to emerge. The breakthrough came during a session with Dr. Rose, Holly continued, referring to Dr. Richard Rose at Western Medical Center in Anaheim. He gave me something called sodium amytal to help me access the memories that my mind had hidden. During that session, everything became clear. I could remember specific incidents, specific words my father had said to me. It was like watching a movie of my own life that I had forgotten existed. The mention of sodium amytal sent another chill through me. I knew what that drug could do to the human mind, how it could make patients extraordinarily suggestible and prone to creating detailed false memories that felt absolutely real. But seeing Holly's emotional response to her supposed memories, watching her relive what she believed to be genuine trauma, made me question everything I thought I knew about the difference between real and false memories. Over the course of several sessions with Holly, I began to notice disturbing patterns in her recollections. Her memories were too perfect, too cinematically complete. Real traumatic memories from childhood are typically fragmented, inconsistent, and painful to access. Holly's memories played out like scenes from a movie, complete with dialogue, sensory details, and narrative coherence that seemed impossible for genuine trauma memories. But what terrified me most was how convinced Holly was of their authenticity. She didn't just believe these memories were real. She knew they were real with the same certainty that you know your own name. When I asked her to describe specific incidents, she would close her eyes and appear to be watching the events unfold in her mind. "I can see the living room where it happened," she would say, her voice taking on an eerie, distant quality. The brown carpet, the way the afternoon light came through the curtains, the sound of the clock ticking on the mantel. I remember thinking that if I focused on the clock, I could make the time go faster and it would be over sooner. The level of detail was extraordinary and deeply unsettling. Holly could describe not just what had allegedly happened to her, but peripheral details about the environment, the time of day, what she was wearing, what television show had been playing in the background. It was the kind of comprehensive recall that seemed to support the authenticity of her memories, but it also raised red flags for anyone familiar with how memory actually works. As I delved deeper into Holly's case, I discovered that her memories had been confirmed through increasingly intensive therapy sessions. Dr. Isabella had used techniques designed to help Holly access what they believed were repressed memories, encouraging her to trust her feelings and impressions even when they seemed unclear or contradictory. Dr. Isabella explained that my mind was trying to protect me from the trauma, Holly told me during one particularly intense session. She said that victims of childhood sexual abuse often repress their memories completely, and that my eating disorder and depression were symptoms of buried trauma trying to surface. She helped me understand that I needed to trust the memories as they came back, even if they were painful. The problem was that the techniques being used, guided imagery, hypnotic regression, and persistent focus on uncovering sexual abuse, were precisely the methods that research had shown could create false memories. But Holly had no way of knowing this. She trusted her therapists completely and believed that they were helping her recover crucial information about her past. What made the case even more disturbing was my interview with Holly's family. I met with her mother, Stephanie Ramona, in the family's Napa Valley home, and what I learned painted a completely different picture of Holly's childhood. Holly was always Daddy's little girl, Stephanie told me, her eyes filled with tears. She and Gary had such a wonderful relationship. She would climb all over him, insist on sitting in his lap during family movie nights, and she was always asking him to help her with homework or school projects. If anything inappropriate had been happening, I would have known. I was always home, always watching my children. Stephanie showed me family photographs and home videos from Holly's childhood. In every image, Holly appeared happy, confident, and completely comfortable with her father. There were pictures of family vacations, birthday parties, school events, all showing a normal, loving family with no signs of the trauma that Holly now claimed to remember. The hardest part, Stephanie continued, is that Holly's memories are so detailed and she's so convinced they're real that sometimes I find myself wondering if I was blind to what was happening in my own home. Could my husband have been abusing my daughter for years without me knowing? Could I have failed to protect my child that completely? This was perhaps the most sinister aspect of false memory cases. They didn't just affect the person experiencing the false memories. They created doubt and guilt in everyone around them. Family members began to question their own recollections, their own judgment, their own reality. I also interviewed Gary Ramona himself, and what I found was a man whose life had been completely destroyed by his daughter's false memories. Gary had been a successful executive at a local winery, but the accusations had cost him his job, his marriage, and his relationship with his children. "Dr. Stevens," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and grief, "I love my daughter more than life itself. The idea that I could have hurt her in any way is devastating to me. But what's even more devastating is that she genuinely believes these things happened. She's not lying or trying to hurt me. She really believes that I abused her. How do you fight against someone's memories? How do you prove that something didn't happen when the supposed victim is absolutely convinced that it did?" Gary's pain was palpable, but so was Holly's. Both were victims of a therapy process that had created false memories so convincing that they felt more real than actual events. The tragedy was that everyone involved, Holly, her family, even her therapists, had been trying to help her, but the techniques they used had created a nightmare that was destroying multiple lives. The more I investigated Holly's case, the more I realized I was dealing with something that challenged the very foundation of human identity. If memories could be this convincing and still be false, what did that say about the reliability of our own sense of self? How many of our cherished childhood memories might be partially or completely false? How could we ever be certain about our own past? These questions became even more troubling when I administered tests designed to measure Holly's susceptibility to false memories. The results showed that she scored significantly higher than average on measures of suggestibility, meaning she was particularly prone to incorporating suggested information into her memory. But the terrifying realization was that all of us are susceptible to false memories under the right conditions. During one particularly disturbing session, I decided to test the boundaries of Holly's memory certainty. I asked her to describe one of her alleged abuse memories in detail, then asked her to repeat the same description a week later. While the core elements remained consistent, I noticed subtle changes in peripheral details, the color of a piece of clothing, the specific words allegedly spoken, the time of day when the incident supposedly occurred. "Holly," I said gently, "I've noticed some small differences in how you've described this memory. Does that concern you at all?" She looked at me with an expression of confusion and mild irritation. "Dr. Stevens, I know what happened to me. These memories are as real as this conversation we're having right now. Just because some small details might be unclear doesn't mean the abuse didn't happen. Traumatic memories aren't perfect, but the core truth remains." The conviction in her voice was absolute, and that's what made the case so terrifying. Holly wasn't experiencing doubt or uncertainty about her memories. She was experiencing them with the same certainty that you experience memories of what you had for breakfast this morning. As the case progressed toward trial, I found myself grappling with questions that went far beyond psychology and neuroscience. If Holly's memories felt completely real to her, were they real in some meaningful sense, even if they hadn't actually occurred? What was the difference between lived experience and remembered experience if both felt equally authentic to the person experiencing them? The legal proceedings that followed were unlike anything I had ever been involved in. Gary Ramona was suing Dr. Isabella, Dr. Rose, and Western Medical Center for implanting false memories in his daughter through inappropriate therapy techniques. It was the first case of its kind, and the implications were staggering. During my testimony as an expert witness, I was asked to explain to the jury how false memories could feel so real and emotionally authentic. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "what makes this case so disturbing is that Holly's memories aren't obviously false. They don't contradict physical evidence or contain impossible elements. They feel real because, in terms of how the brain processes them, they are real. The neural pathways that store these false memories are indistinguishable from those that store genuine memories." The courtroom was silent as I continued. This means that any of us could potentially develop false memories under the right circumstances. The techniques used in Holly's therapy, suggestion, expectation, and repeated focus on uncovering repressed trauma, could theoretically create false memories in anyone. The human mind is far more malleable than we like to believe. I watched the faces of the jury members as I spoke, and I could see my words affecting them. Several looked uncomfortable, as if they were suddenly questioning their own memories. One woman actually asked the judge if she could be excused because my testimony was making her doubt her own recollections of childhood events. The trial revealed disturbing details about how Holly's false memories had been created. Dr. Rose had administered sodium amytal specifically to help Holly access what they believed were repressed memories of sexual abuse. Under the influence of the drug, Holly had provided detailed accounts of abuse that felt completely real to her. But sodium amytal doesn't unlock hidden memories. It makes people extraordinarily suggestible. Under its influence, patients can create elaborate false memories based on subtle suggestions from therapists or their own expectations about what they might discover. The drug essentially turned Holly's therapy session into an exercise in guided fantasy that she later remembered as genuine experience. The most chilling moment of the trial came when recordings of Holly's sodium amytal session were played in court. I watched Holly's face as she heard her own voice describing incidents of abuse that had never occurred. For the first time since I had met her, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "That's my voice," she whispered to her attorney. "But I don't remember saying those things exactly that way. Some of the details sound different from how I remember them." That moment of uncertainty was both heartbreaking and terrifying. Holly was beginning to realize that her most traumatic memories might not be reliable, but she was also facing the possibility that her entire sense of self had been built on false experiences. The jury's verdict in 1994 was decisive. They found in favor of Gary Ramona, awarding him $500,000 in damages and establishing that the therapists had used techniques that were likely to produce false memories. But the legal victory felt hollow when I considered the human cost. Holly's family was destroyed, her sense of reality was shattered, and everyone involved had been traumatized by the experience. After the trial, I continued to follow Holly's case and to research the broader implications of false memory syndrome. What I learned was that Holly's experience wasn't unique. Thousands of families had been destroyed by false memories created through well-intentioned but scientifically unsound therapy techniques. The most disturbing aspect of my research was the realization that memory is far more fragile and malleable than most people understand. Every time we remember an event, we potentially modify it slightly based on our current knowledge, emotions, and expectations. Over time, these small modifications can accumulate until our memories bear little resemblance to what actually occurred. This means that all of us are walking around with memories that are at least partially false. The childhood birthday party you remember so fondly might have happened differently than you recall. The embarrassing incident from high school might have been less traumatic than you remember, or more traumatic, or might not have happened at all in the way you think it did. Years later, I still think about Holly Ramona and the profound questions her case raised about the nature of memory and identity. She genuinely believed she had someone else's memories. Memories of abuse that felt completely real and authentic to her, but had been created through suggestion and expectation rather than genuine experience. The case taught me that the line between memory and imagination, between past and present, between self and other, is far more blurred than we typically realize. It showed me that our sense of personal identity, which we think of as solid and reliable, is actually built on a foundation that can be surprisingly unstable. But perhaps the most terrifying lesson from Holly's case is that it could happen to any of us. Under the right circumstances, with the right combination of suggestion and expectation, any of us could develop false memories that feel completely real. We could wake up one day convinced that our childhood was different than we remember, that traumatic events occurred that never actually happened, or that people we love and trust actually harmed us. The Holly Ramona case remains one of the most significant in the history of psychology and neuroscience. It fundamentally changed how we think about memory, therapy, and the nature of human consciousness. For me, it will always serve as a chilling reminder of how fragile our grip on reality truly is, and how easily the stories we tell ourselves about our own lives can be corrupted by forces beyond our control. The Holly Ramona case didn't just change my professional perspective. It fundamentally altered how I experience my own life. 3 months after the trial ended, I found myself lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling of my childhood bedroom during a visit to my parents' house. I was gripping the bed sheets, my heart racing, as a terrifying thought consumed me. What if the memory of my grandfather tucking me in every night wasn't real? The memory had always been precious to me, the smell of his aftershave, the way he would sit on the edge of my bed and tell me stories about his childhood, the warmth of his hand on my forehead as he whispered goodnight. But now, in the darkness of that childhood room, I couldn't shake the possibility that this cherished memory might be a construction, a beautiful lie my mind had created and perfected over the years. I started compulsively fact-checking my own past. I called my mother at inappropriate hours, asking her to confirm details about family vacations, birthday parties, and conversations I remembered having with my father. She grew concerned about my obsessive need for verification, but I couldn't stop. The case had infected me with a kind of memory paranoia that made me doubt everything I thought I knew about myself. "Rachel, honey, why are you asking me about that camping trip from when you were 8?" my mother asked during one particularly difficult phone call. "You've told that story 100 times. You remember it perfectly." But that was exactly the problem. I remembered it too perfectly. The dialogue was too clear, the emotions too neatly packaged, the narrative too satisfying. Real memories aren't that pristine. After working with Holly, I knew that the most convincing false memories are often the ones that feel most authentic. I began studying my own childhood photographs like a detective examining crime scene evidence. Did my smile look genuine in that Christmas morning photo? Or was I unconsciously performing happiness because that's what I was supposed to feel? Had my relationship with my siblings really been as close as I remembered? Or had I sanitized the conflicts and complications that every family experiences? The most disturbing moment came 6 months after the trial, when I was looking through old family videos. I found a recording of my 8th birthday party, and as I watched my younger self blowing out the candles, I realized that my memory of that day was completely different from what the video showed. I remembered wearing a blue dress and feeling embarrassed because I couldn't blow out all the candles at once. But in the video, I was wearing red, and I successfully extinguished all 8 candles in one breath while everyone cheered. My memory wasn't just wrong, it was completely fabricated. I had created an entire false narrative about my own birthday party, complete with emotions and sensory details that felt absolutely real. If I could be so wrong about something as simple as a birthday party, what else in my past might be fiction? I started keeping a daily journal, documenting every detail of my life in an attempt to create an objective record that my memory couldn't corrupt. But even this felt futile. How could I trust my perceptions in the moment, any more than I could trust my memories of the past? The paranoia extended to my professional life as well. During patient evaluations, I found myself second-guessing every assessment, wondering if my clinical observations were accurate or if I was unconsciously imposing my own expectations onto my patients' presentations. The confidence I had built over 14 years of practice was shattered, replaced by a persistent uncertainty that made every decision feel potentially catastrophic. My relationships suffered too. I became suspicious of shared memories with friends and family, constantly asking for confirmation of events we had experienced together. My husband grew frustrated with my need to verify every story, every shared experience, every moment of our relationship that I claimed to remember. "Rachel, you're making our entire history feel like it's under investigation," he told me during one particularly tense conversation. I fell in love with a woman who was confident in her own experiences, not someone who questions every memory we've created together. But I couldn't stop. The case had shown me that memory is essentially a creative act, that every time we recall an event, we're essentially rewriting it. This realization was both intellectually fascinating and existentially terrifying. If our memories shape our identity and our memories are unreliable, then who are we really? I began to understand, in a visceral way, what Holly had experienced when she discovered that her most traumatic memories were false. The disorientation, the loss of foundational certainties, the sickening realization that your own mind cannot be trusted. These weren't just clinical symptoms I could observe from a professional distance. They were lived experiences that had become part of my own reality. The most frightening aspect of this realization was that there was no way back to innocence. Once you truly understand how malleable memory is, you can never again have complete confidence in your own recollections. Every childhood story becomes suspect. Every foundational memory becomes questionable. Every certainty about your past becomes a probability at best. I tried therapy myself, hoping to find some way to reconcile my new understanding of memory with my need for personal certainty. But even that felt compromised. How could I trust a therapist to help me understand my past when I knew how easily therapeutic techniques could create false memories? The very process designed to help me might corrupt the memories I was trying to verify. 3 years after the Holly Ramona case, I made the difficult decision to specialize in a different area of neuropsychology. I couldn't continue working with memory-related cases when my own relationship with memory had become so fraught. The irony wasn't lost on me. The case that had established my reputation as an expert in false memory syndrome had also made it impossible for me to continue working in that field. Sometimes, late at night, I find myself questioning my own memories. Did that conversation with my father really happen the way I remember it? Was my childhood actually as happy as I recall? Or have I unconsciously edited out the difficult parts? How many of my most cherished memories are partially or completely false? But the questions go deeper now. I wonder if my memory of meeting Holly Ramona is accurate, or if I've unconsciously embellished certain details to make the story more compelling. Did she really look at me with those haunted eyes, or have I projected that detail onto my memory? Did Gary Ramona's pain really seem as profound as I remember, or have I amplified it in my mind to match the narrative I want to tell? The most terrifying possibility is that my entire sense of self, my identity as a competent neuropsychologist, my understanding of my own childhood, my confidence in my professional abilities, might be built on a foundation of memories that are partially or completely false. If that's the case, then who am I really? And more importantly, how would I ever know? These are the questions that Holly Ramona's case forces us to confront, and they're questions that don't have comfortable answers. In a world where memory can be so unreliable, how do we know who we really are? And once we've lost confidence in our own memories, is there any way to get it back?